Hi, John. You built a Cloud Run service that calls a large language model?
Yes, I did. I'd be happy to show you the application and the code I wrote, Martin.
John, I've seen your name many times as a Google developer expert and Google champion innovator on AI, and a bunch of places online where people ask about serverless computing. It's so good to finally talk with you.
You too, Martin.
Tell us about your background in computing, John.
I've been involved in computing for a long time. I have participated as a founder with 3 companies that went from startup to acquisition via IBM, AT&T, and Symantec. I have served as a board member with several companies, including the Linux Foundation.
Wow, that's an amazing experience. And you've worked quite a bit with Google Cloud.
Yes, I've been working with Google Cloud since before it was called Google Cloud. At first, there was only App Engine back in 2007. Then other products were added, and now there are more than 100 services.
John, you told me that you built a Cloud Run service that calls a large language model in Gemini. Tell me more about that.
Yes, I built it as a demo application that interacts with the Gemini REST API. I tried to make it easy to use my code. Anyone watching this can play with it, learn, and adapt it to their needs.
I love that. Why did you pick Cloud Run?
Well, Cloud Run is my absolute favorite cloud service. It's easy to get started, and it's easy to deploy just about any application. It's serverless, so there's no complicated setup or maintenance. It's a great way to deploy code in the cloud quickly.
I agree. I really like Cloud Run too.
Here is my application. It's a simple web app. Here I pick which Gemini version to use. This dropdown will have the Gemini models that your API key has been granted access to. When we're recording this, Google's recommendation is to use the Gemini 1.5 Flash model. And then I can type my prompt here or speak it. Let's ask Gemini the most common women's names in France. When I click send, my prompt is sent to Gemini and the response appears below my question. It understands the context, so I can ask it a follow-up question. Let's ask it where the 5th name on the list comes from. And here's the answer.
Very nice. Now, I'm a developer. Could you show us your code, John?
Yes. The code is on GitHub, so anyone watching this can try it out for themselves and adapt it to their needs. It's available in Node.js with Express and Python with Flask. I've also included instructions how to build it in Windows and Linux and how to deploy it to Google Cloud.
All right. I see the repo now. I will include a link to it in the video description. Can you describe how it works?
I'd be happy to. Let's walk through the Python Flask version. The interesting part is here in the app.py file. I'll scroll down to the ask function. This function gets a user's input as an HTTP post request from the browser. The post request contains 2 fields, which Gemini model to use, and the user's prompt or question. It calls the Ask Gemini function and then returns the answer from that function to the browser.
And the Ask Gemini function looks like it's defined in another file?
Yes, that function is here in the gcp_gemini.py file. I put all the Google-specific interfaces in files that start with gcp_. The Ask Gemini function first validates the request.
And then there's an API key. What is that used for?
The API key will be used for the call to Gemini. This code adds the API key to the header of the request that will be sent to the model.
Why do you put that API key in the header of the HTTP request? I've seen code where the API key is appended to the URL instead.
For security best practices, secrets should not be part of a request URL. The recommended method is use the Gemini header x-goog-api-key.
Very good. And where does your code get that API key from?
My code tries to read the API key in the following order. Hard-coding the variable Gemini_API_key, the environment variable Google_API_key, secret manager secret name Gemini_API_key. Then we put together the request body with the user's question here. And here we send the HTTP post request to Gemini. with the header and body we prepared.
And then it looks like you check if the model returned an error with status 400 or 404. What's next?
The code handles the finish reason, which can be stop, max tokens, recitation, or safety. What we want to see is the reason code, stop, which means success. If that's the case, we call the function get_Gemini_response_text.
I see. And then there's something about Markdown.
Yes, Gemini returns responses using Markdown formatting. Most web browsers don't understand Markdown, so I post-process the response to convert Markdown to HTML. And then I like to make tables look a little better by applying a CSS class and some stripes to them.
Nice. You showed us before that the model understands context. You asked about the fifth name in a list in a previous answer, and that required knowledge of the conversation up to that point. How does it know that context?
For multi-turn conversations, also known as chat, Gemini maintains no previous state. The entire conversation must be included with each request. This is performed with multiple Gemini context sections with user and model parts.
How would a developer typically create and test a new version of this application?
You can clone the repository and execute the application on your desktop from a local Docker container or deploy to Cloud Run. Typically, I recommend writing and testing code locally and then deploying to Cloud Run. The code is written to work locally or in the cloud on services such as Cloud Run, App Engine, or Compute Engine.
I can't wait to download and start tinkering with your application, John. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for having me, Martin. Anyone watching this can download my code and use it to start building your own Gemini apps. Also, remember that Gemini is evolving rapidly. Gemini will have new capabilities by the time viewers watch this video.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you have questions for John or me, please add a comment below. Also, let me know if there are other serverless topics you'd like to see in future episodes. I read every single comment. Until next time.